Ever since its arrival, the Mk8 GTI has been subject to both praise and criticism, as the new looks, interior technology, and pricing has soured what should have been a highly anticipated launch. Instead, many enthusiasts and buyers have questioned whether the 2022 GTI is a worthy successor to the now legendary and highly regarded Mk7 generation. Historically, Volkswagen has always pushed the limits one step further throughout the years, finding ways to improve over the prior model. But you've got to wonder if the Mk7 was the pinnacle and perfect formula that just can't be outdone without fundamentally changing this hot hatch. So here's a comparison between both generations to see if buying a used Mk7 over a new Mk8 is the better decision. The main selling point for the Volkswagen GTI is the performance for the price, as very few rivals can match what this hatchback has to offer. When the Mk7 arrived, you received an impressive amount of horsepower and pound-feet of torque, and best of all, you had a car that gave you crisp handling, a sports-tuned suspension, and driving dynamics not typically found in the $30,000 price range. Out of the box, it's the perfect daily driver, with very few, if any, flaws, and if there was a weak spot, aftermarket support helped improve the driving and ownership experience. Where the Mk8 impresses the most to solidify its place in the GTI's long history is with its ability to keep you engaged with a different type of on-road demeanor compared to its predecessor. The Mk8 is powered by the same 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, this time producing 241 horsepower and 273 pound-feet of torque. While performance gains are minimal, there's a noticeable difference when accelerating, where it's quicker to respond and there's more grab when shifting through gears, resembling what a Stage 1 tune would do to a fully stock Mk7 GTI. However, straight-line speed isn't the only metric that draws enthusiasts in, it's also the handling. For 2022, the chassis has been stiffened by about 5% up front and 15% in the rear, making the GTI feel more flat in corners, inspiring confidence when on a spirited drive, and also the steering has been given some added weight, a characteristic we see very often in true German sports cars. Compared to last generation, the Mk8 is primed and ready for enthusiast-focused driving the minute you're handed the keys, whereas you may have been inclined to install a tune and rear sway bars on a Mk7 for optimal performance. It's for that reason alone upgrading to a 2022 model makes sense, especially if you're not into modifying your car and you're just looking for a new experience during your weekday commutes. Drawing a lot of attention and even some ire among enthusiasts is the new interior for the Mk8 that gives drivers a full digital gauge cluster, which comes standard, and a completely redesigned head unit that not too many people are fans of. To be fair, the GTI was in need of a modernized cabin, despite traditional buyers preferring an analog layout and physical buttons. With rivals and the industry in general moving in the digitalized direction, Volkswagen is blending tech that we see in new Audi vehicles while still retaining a driving environment previous GTI owners could easily adapt to. When compared to the Mk7, the haptic feedback buttons on the steering wheel is certainly a drawback, and the lack of physical buttons on the dashboard complicates the user interface. On the flip side, the Mk8 does offer Vienna leather seats that provide a good amount of support and have a higher quality feel compared to prior generations. Sadly, we weren't too impressed with the cloth seats that come standard on the S and SE, but overall the interior is accommodating and welcoming for longtime Volkswagen enthusiasts. However, with that being said, where the Mk7 still has a place in the hearts of many is the fact that the interior is more driver-centric and less tech-induced, where you do have a touchscreen, but there's quick access buttons mounted on either side, and below you have physical buttons and dials for the climate control settings. Even better, the cabin has aged gracefully, where it doesn't look outdated despite being close to an 8-year-old design. From that perspective alone, the last generation is very enticing and offers just enough where you'll likely not beg for more. When it comes to the outward appearance, this is mostly predicated on personal preference, and for the GTI, brand loyalists will always point to the Mk7 as being the best looking generation maybe since the Mk1 and Mk2. Interestingly enough, even with the 2022 model arriving late last year, the 7.5 still looks brand new today, as the facelift for the headlights and taillights kept this hot hatch looking fresh and dynamic, while reinforcing enthusiast decisions to look at buying used over new. Despite some claiming that the road presence for the Mk8 is a step backwards, you can say it's evolutionary rather than revolutionary, as both generations are built on Volkswagen's MQB platform, so exterior dimensions and even body lines haven't been altered so much where this hatchback is unrecognizable. With Volkswagen redesigning their entire lineup, the GTI does share cosmetic similarities with other models, such as the Tiguan, especially with the LED taillights, but also the front fascia as well with the reshaped headlights and LED light bar that runs through the emblem. It may be an acquired taste for some. However, rivals within this market have raised eyebrows with their futuristic designs, and to compete in this segment, Volkswagen had to make the necessary changes to stay relevant. Prior to 2020, you'd look at the Volkswagen GTI as being reasonably priced, and in fact, many enthusiasts would likely agree that it was the best option for buyers on a budget, and that may still be the case in 2022. Today, as with any vehicle, you'll be either paying over sticker, or in the used market, you may see prices similar to what these hot hatches were listed at when they were new. While enthusiasts continue to show no hesitation in buying Mk7 GTIs, even with them retaining their resale value, there's certainly been some pause before seriously considering a Mk8, and that is mostly attributed to the markups. We can analyze and debate whether a 2022 GTI has a better interior, or if the exterior design is appealing, but ultimately it boils down to the cost and what consumers are willing to pay for a marginally improved generation. At MSRP for an S or SE, you're going to be spending somewhere between $30,000 and $35,000, which is a stark difference compared to a few years ago when a base GTI could be had for a few grand below $30,000. Then factor in a $2,000 markup, for example, which might be a bit generous in this market. And honestly, you're overpaying. The Autobahn trim for 2022 can exceed the $40,000 mark, and at that point, you might find a better value with a lightly used Mk7 Golf R. As discussed earlier, the new Mk8 is a fantastic car that performs smoother, handles far better than in the past, and the infusion of modern tech was certainly needed. But due to the prior generation being as close to perfection as you're going to get in the modern era, the Mk7 GTI, even with the high used prices, can be seen as being a better bang for your buck, especially if you're on a budget right around $30,000. Of course, your decision can be made for you, as the car shortages have affected availability for new GTIs, and unless you're willing to wait, the wider variety of used Mk7s might be more appealing. When cross-shopping the Mk7 and Mk8, you can approach this comparison from different angles, whether that be performance, interior technology, or pricing, which we believe at this moment in time is the deciding factor for many buyers. It's not uncommon to see sticker prices increase when a new model year comes out. However, the question you have to ask yourself is whether the improvements that Volkswagen made is worth the extra $5,000 to $7,000. Hopefully within the near future, we see prices return to MSRP, because competitors aren't necessarily more affordable. And while some of the interior materials might be a bit lower quality than what we would expect from a German car, the Mk8 GTI is the closest vehicle on the market that resembles some of the entry-level luxury Audis. And that is what's so disappointing about the car shortages, because this hot hatch is exciting to drive and performance-wise a step up from the Mk7. But is it worth paying up to $40,000? That's up to you to decide. And if you just don't want to max out your budget, the Mk7 is still there to be a great daily driver. We hope you enjoyed this comparison between the Mk7 and Mk8 GTI. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more videos like this one. And if you're interested in buying a GTI or any other sports car, make sure to check out our full reviews to help you find your next vehicle. And thanks for watching.